Welcome to another episode of A Moment of Tiki, coming to you from the Lagoon of Mystery, my home tiki bar here in Central Texas. Today, I am going to discuss what I believe is the best bargain in tiki books available today that I think a lot of people are sleeping on. But it's going to take a little bit of a history lesson to get there. So just bear with me, and I think it's kind of interesting. So there's a guy, many of you probably have heard of him, named Sven Kirsten. Sven Kirsten was, or is, a German filmmaker, and in the late 1980s, he moved to Los Angeles to work in the U.S. film industry. And while he was in California, he started noticing remnants of the first wave tiki culture, bowling alleys with Polynesian themes, apartment buildings, remnant tiki bars, these elements that had kind of fallen by the wayside in the great mass destruction of tiki during the late 1970s and the 1980s, where tiki was just wiped out. And so he was at the very forefront of the tiki revival. What he did was started documenting this stuff because they didn't have anything like that in Germany, and it really fascinated him. And so he started collecting this and put it together into a book, was rejected by many, many publishers, but eventually connected with Taschen, which is a publisher in Germany that had relocated to the United States at one point, or opened their offices here. What Taschen does is produce oversized, lush, very graphic photograph, intensive books that are in 3 languages: English, German, and French. Excuse me. So when Sven hooked up with them, he produced what is known as the Book of Tiki. The Book of Tiki came out in the year 2000, and this is considered kind of the watershed moment of tiki culture, of the tiki revival, because you had Jeff Beachbumberry, who had been researching cocktails. You had Martin Kate, who had been advocating to redevelop and reintroduce tiki bars in a more modern context. And Sven's book, the Book of Tiki, kind of was the catalyst for everything to come together. You had Tiki Central form there. So the year 2000 essentially was a watershed mark in the tiki revival history. Okay. This came out in 2000. It was long out of print by the time I got involved with tiki in 2017. So it was published 17 years prior. It had probably been out of print for a decade. But lucky for me, or so I thought at the time, Taschen had recently come out with, well, I say recently, in 2015 came out with this pocket digest version of the Book of Tiki. It was called Tiki Style. Now, this was great because it was more affordable. It was $20, $30, $25, $30 at the time. And I said, okay, well, this is great, except the type in this book was insanely small. It was literally difficult to read. Let me check my notes right here, but the Book of Tiki, published in 2000, had 287 pages. Lushly illustrated, lots of text. Tiki Style, the smaller digest version of it, came out in 2015. It was reduced to 190 pages. That's almost 100 pages fewer. Something has got to give. Obviously, the photos were smaller, but the text was a lot smaller as well. That was extremely frustrating. Fortunately, I was able to acquire one of the original soft covers from a friend at a decent price. Nowadays, this goes for $200 easily online. This one, originally sold for $25, $30, goes for $150 online, if not more. Once they go out of print, Taschen doesn't generally reprint their books. They're one and done. However many copies they sell off that first print run, that is it. We saw that also with Sven Kirsten's next book, Tiki Modern, which delved into Whitco and a lot of the 1960s aesthetic choices and directions that Tiki went. Tiki Modern came out in 2007, was 335 pages long, went out of print, and to my knowledge has never been reprinted in any other type of edition, softcover or digest form or anything like that. Copies of Tiki Modern go for more than $300 on the used market. That's insane. I don't have one yet. I'm still looking. So this brings me up to my initial foray into Tikidom. In 2017, I was getting interested, started looking around online, and lo and behold, just a couple of years earlier, Sven published Tiki Pop, 2014. It retailed for $60, which to my mind was pretty expensive at the time. I didn't realize what a massive book it was. Full color throughout. It's just a gorgeous representation. And though there is some overlap with the Book of Tiki, Tiki Pop focused mainly on the pop culture elements of Tiki. Now, this is the thing. Sven looked around and saw all these Tiki elements, but he also realized that all these borrowings of Polynesian culture weren't being incorporated authentically. In the US, there wasn't a concern of reproducing or recreating Hawaiian culture or Maori culture or Marquesan culture, or any of these. All of these aesthetic elements were brought together and blended up and regurgitated, so to speak, in this Polynesian fantasy that, although it had the trappings of actual cultures, was, this made-up fantasy version of paradise beaches and, tropical paradise. Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you see, please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. If you really like what you've been seeing here at A Moment of Tiki, please leave a comment or maybe even share the video to your feeds. What this does is make it easier for others to find A Moment of Tiki. And if you do that, I will be grateful. Mahalo. Now, you're probably sitting there at your computer thinking, okay, thanks for the history lesson, but what does this have to do with today's episode? Get to the point already. And I will. Tiki Pop, the first edition, was published in 2014, retailed for about $60, 384 pages long. It's a massive, massive book. 10 by 13. It's huge. You can, crush small animals with it. In 2020, Taschen came out right as the first edition went out of print, with the second edition, much smaller, but not as small as the pocket version of Tiki style, the Book of Tiki. What's more, whereas the original version of Tiki Pop is 384 pages, this is 635 pages. They went the opposite direction that they did with the Tiki style. Whereas this, they compacted the book, shrank the text, made it as small as possible. In this one, the text remains legible. They didn't cut anything out. You have all the languages, the English, the German, the French in here. They literally reformatted this entire book so it sits down in this much, much smaller scale. Although it's still gorgeous, it's still enormous. But the glorious thing about it is this retail price is $25. $25 for a full color throughout book, more than 600 pages? That's unheard of in this day and age. Since this version, this smaller version of Tiki Pop has been on the market for 4 years, I have growing concerns that it is reaching the end of its life, at the end of its run, and won't be available very much longer. So I wanted to kind of put out the word to any newcomers to Tiki or anyone who's been on the fence about getting this. Don't sleep on it much longer, because this, I swear, this is probably at $25, this is the biggest value available in any Tiki book, and that's including the recipes, histories, various others. I've seen books that are 100 pages that cost $25, that are not full color throughout, that are of dubious provenance, from people who have not done their research, just trying to cash in on the Tiki craze that's happening right now. You're not going to find a better overview of what we enjoy today as Tiki culture than you will in Tiki Pop. It starts off with it's 34 chapters. It gives you pre-Tiki the settings, the historical context that actually gives rise to Tiki, the European explorations and colonization of various Polynesian island groups, the annexation of Hawaii, the Hawaiian craze that happened first in the United States in the 20s and 30s, and then again around in the late 50s as Hawaii became the 50th state of the United States. It goes into Hollywood's fascination with the South Seas, how artists like Gauguin and writers like Herman Melville and later on Tor Heyerdahl wrote best-selling books that romanticized the Polynesian islands and the life of sailors and this exotic mystical locale. It talks about World War II, how in the bloody island hopping campaigns of the Pacific theater of war, United States and soldiers of other nations, but mostly the U.S., had their leave in Hawaii and other islands in the South Pacific that were, again, the vision of paradise, with palm-shaded beaches and idyllic sands with waves washing up and beautiful indigenous women. All of this was brought back to the United States, where Don Beach and his competitor Trader Vic were expanding their various Tiki getaways, even before it was known as Tiki. Then in the 1950s, Stephen Crane, the Hollywood actor, opened the Luau, Stephen Crane's Luau in Beverly Hills, which for the first time used Tiki, carved Tiki figures as the centerpiece of the decor. Whereas Don Beach and Trader Vic in the past had incorporated Tikis, but it was more of the beachcomber aesthetic. Little of this, little of that, flotsam, jetsam, driftwood, nautical, all this other. It wasn't focused so much on the South Seas. It incorporated, the Caribbean and other things. Stephen Crane, with his subsequent Ports of Call and Kontiki restaurant franchises, restaurant Tiki bar establishments that went to all the Sheraton hotels across North America and beyond, is really the person who put the Tiki into Tiki bars and Tiki experience and Tiki culture. All of that is lushly documented here, how a proliferation of copycats exploded, how the Tiki logos came to be, how Hawaii statehood tremendously influenced tiki culture in the United States. The cocktails, the architecture, all of this is packed into 635 pages in this book. Now, I have a link below where you can click on to go get this at Amazon, but don't feel you have to do that. If you have a local bookstore, go to them and see if they will order it for you, because we all want to support local. But if you even have half an interest in this, I would recommend you go get it now. Don't wait, don't put it off, because one day these books are going to be available online in bookstores for $25, and then a week from now, 2 weeks, who knows, a year, suddenly the price is going to jump up to $9,500 and $150, $200 after that. That is when they are no longer available from Taschen. That is when the warehouses are empty and third-party sellers are going to rule. The same as they did with the Book of Tiki, the same as they did with Tiki Modern, the same as they've done with every other lush, overprinted, oversized, gorgeous full-color book that Sven has produced thus far. So don't be late on the train. I have no financial involvement with Taschen. They're not going to publish anything I ever write. Sven's not paying me off on this. I just think that this is a book that should be in every Tiki Files library, that a lot of people are overlooking because it's not the Book of Tiki, because it's not Jeff Beachbumberry Book of Recipes. I think that's a tragic mistake. You want to check this out, you want to add it to your library, and you want to do it ASAP before they're gone, because once they're gone, they're gone. Taschen isn't a publisher that reprints a lot of their stuff. Honestly, I really, really wish once this goes out of print that they come back and do Tiki Modern in this format, because this is a gorgeous format. It is insanely affordable, and it just packs so much into these pages. I'm just completely in love with it, if you can't tell, and can't recommend it enough. So until next time, from the Lagoon of Mystery, aloha. What Sven does in this book is trace the history of Tiki Pop as a cultural phenomenon in the United States. This book was $60 and is now out of print. But lo and behold, Cotton, what are you doing? Ridiculous cat. Okay, let's try again.
Well, if you ever feel lonely and you haven't got a friend, you feel downhearted, and that's your rope in to get yourself together and head for a place I know. It's a little German town with a Spanish name, and once you go there, you never be the same, and it's a whole lot cleaner and safer than Mexico. Well, it's 90 miles from Houston, 120 from San Antonio, and once you hit the city limit, you don't have to be alone. Every tavern salesman that's on the road, every trucker that's scared and overload knows a boom in a little bird they call a grain. If your ever loving woman won't treat you right, and your nights get longer and your pants get tight, then get yourself country town they call Lagoon. Well, it's 90 miles from Houston, 120 from San Antonio. And once you hit the city limits, you don't have to be alone. Every traveling salesman that's on the road, every trucker that's carrying overload knows a booming little bird they call Lagoon. So if you got a little money and you feel uptight, go to LaGrange and they'll treat you right. Just stop at the filling station, give them half a chance. And they'll give you directions to a little retreat with the grade A government inspected meat. And they'll send you to the famous chicken ranch. Well, it's 90 miles from Houston, 120 from San Antonio. And once you hit the city limits, you don't have to be alone. Every traveling salesman that's on the road, every trucker that's carrying overloads knows a booming little bird they call Lagoon. Every traveling salesman that's on the road, every trucker that's carrying overloads knows a booming little bird they call Lagoon. Thank you.
Honey, that is a little country place out there that people's tried to make it into something that it wasn't. Just a little country horse, what it amounted to.
Yeah.